As the movie begins, a group of people boards a private plane from New York, greeted by the captain. The plane takes off, showing a montage of the luxurious lives they lead. Upon landing, they are escorted in a fleet of luxury cars. Two passengers, Amber and Tony, are at the front of the group. They arrive at the harbor, where Amber is immediately annoyed at the sight of the ship they'll be boarding. Tony tries to reassure her. The ship's captain welcomes them, but Amber acts snooty. A crew member, Pepe, is irritated by her attitude but follows orders to escort her to her cabin. Amber asks about the gem, and Pepe sarcastically says he'll bring it to her. He delivers an exercise bike, prompting her to scream at her husband. When he later brings a jump rope, she jokingly threatens to strangle the captain with it. At dinner, a passenger named Debbie excitedly talks about their trip from Greece to Italy, only to be mocked by the others. Tony arrives casually dressed, which annoys Amber, as they had all agreed to dress up. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Pepe tells the captain he can't stand Amber, but the captain reminds him they're well paid to tolerate her. While the guests enjoy swimming, Amber refuses to join. Pepe tries to be polite, but she remains rude. Later, while exercising, she debates capitalism versus communism, then money and fame. Pepe listens, later telling the captain she's rude and heartless. Suddenly, she snaps her fingers at him, demanding water and a towel, which he begrudgingly provides. While the female guests sunbathe, Pepe stops two crew members from spying on them, but then watches for a moment himself. Amber notices. She continues treating him horribly all day. That evening, the guests gamble while Pepe fishes. They mention he was once a full-time fisherman until pollution destroyed the industry. When asked his opinion, he says chemicals have made life easier for some, but easier doesn't mean better. Money corrupts principles. At breakfast, Amber complains about the food, and Pepe, in his imagination, snaps, throwing the bowl over her head, warning Tony not to interfere, then tossing her into the sea. But in reality, he takes the food back to the kitchen, where the chefs confirm nothing is wrong. The captain orders it to be cooked again, anyway. When he apologizes to Amber, she accuses them of punishing her for being rich. He assures her he loves their money. The guests spend a day on shore. When they return, Amber overhears Pepe swearing at the captain and complains, but the captain smooths things over. That evening, she insists they cook the fish she bought, but since it's of poor quality, they secretly serve Pepe's fresh fish instead. She never realizes. That night, the boat rocks as Pepe carries a fish through the corridor. He bumps into a drunk Amber, who flirts with him, blocking his way. She asks him to dance, but he refuses, saying he won't dance with people he doesn't like. The next evening, the wives stay up playing cards and drinking. Amber steps onto the deck, noticing Pepe watching from a distance. She walks away. The next day, the other guests visit some caves, leaving Amber behind. She suddenly insists on going, and Pepe is ordered to take her. He warns her about the strong currents, but she ignores him. As they set off, the engine breaks down. Pepe tries to fix it but fails. As they drift, Amber grows anxious, but he reminds her he warned her about the current. Night falls and they remain adrift. Amber is furious. The next morning, Pepe laments his miserable life. He tries to fix the engine again, but drops a tool overboard. He dives in to retrieve it just as Amber wakes. Thinking he has abandoned her or drowned, she screams his name. When he resurfaces, he smirks and asks if she missed him. She demands to know why her friends haven't come to find her, but Pepe reminds her that the sea is vast. As he climbs aboard, she searches the boat and finds a flare gun. Later, Pepe catches a fish and offers it to Amber raw. Disgusted, she throws it away. Furious, he tells her it took him hours to catch. Suddenly, they spot a ship in the distance. Amber tries to fire the flare gun, but when it doesn't work, Pepe grabs it from her. They struggle, and the gun accidentally fires, puncturing the inflatable boat. Amber screams in frustration. As night falls, they cling to the deflated raft while a storm rages. By morning, Amber spots land. They paddle towards it, stumbling ashore, exhausted. Pepe climbs higher to scout the area and realizes they're stranded on a small, deserted island. Amber refuses to believe it and calls him a hairy, useless midget. Enraged, he warns her to watch her mouth and storms off. Pepe discovers an old shed and sets up a small camp, fashioning tools and collecting fresh water. Meanwhile, Amber explores on her own, but eventually tracks him down. She spots him drinking water and eyes the bottle greedily. As he leaves to spear fish, she sneaks over and steals his water. When he returns and catches her in the act, She smirks defiantly. However, Pepe has caught a lobster and eats it in front of her as she watches enviously. She offers to pay him for some food, but he scoffs. He's not interested in her money. Furious, she throws sand at him, and he slaps her, declaring that he's in charge now. He orders her to do his laundry in exchange for food and insists that from now on, she calls him master. Reluctantly, she washes his clothes. When she returns, he forces her to thank him for the privilege, then orders her to fill his water bottle. Only then does he share some of the lobster. That night, he retreats to the shed, refusing to let her in. Shivering, she pleads that she won't survive another night in the cold, but he ignores her. The next morning, Pepe wakes Amber early and orders her to clean his room. Later, they fish together and she cooks for him. She tells him that if he treats her well, she will reward him. He questions how she knows they will be rescued and warns that she will be punished every time she disobeys him, just as she did to him on the ship. While fishing again, Pepe catches an octopus, but Amber, terrified, throws it away. Later, as she sits down to rest, Pepe insists that she wait on him instead. He reminds her that he is her master now and orders her to sing and dance for him. As he watches, he is amazed by her performance. The next day, he smokes while she does chores. They start arguing, and he chases after her. They struggle on the sand dunes, and he pins her down. She finally gives in to his demands, but then he suddenly pulls away, telling her he must fall in love first. He declares that he will become her god, and she doesn't yet know who he truly is. Sometime later, Amber sits on a rock, deep in thought. The next morning, she gathers firewood, and they spend a joyful day together on the beach. Eventually, Pepe allows her to sleep in the shed. As time passes, they grow closer, and Amber becomes more skilled at survival. One morning, while collecting firewood, she spots a yacht but chooses not to call out. That night, she is quiet and asks Pepe if he would prefer a younger woman. He reassures her, saying he wants to be with a woman, not a girl. It starts to rain, and inside the shed, Pepe finds a bottle of alcohol. They drink together, gradually loosening up. The next day, while fixing fishing nets, Amber confesses her love for him. Pepe wonders if they would still be the same if they hadn't been shipwrecked. Later, she catches an octopus alone and proudly presents him with some eggs. He tells her that he has done what needed to be done. She playfully throws the eggs at him, and he chases her. They continue to share happy moments, and Amber's attitude and skills improve. One morning, they wake on the beach and spot a yacht off the coast. Amber begs him not to signal for help, but he insists that if she truly loves him, she must prove it in the real world. Despite her pleas, he calls for rescue. When they are saved, their rescuers inform Amber that she has been all over the news. The captain tells her that her husband, Tony, is coming for her. He also tells Pepe that they have been missing for over a month and that the entire world has been talking about them. Tony, being wealthy, will reward Pepe generously. At the harbor, Tony thanks Pepe for his services. He embraces Amber while Pepe walks away, heading to a bar. A man follows Pepe and offers him a large reward. Pepe throws him out, but the man leaves the bag of money behind. With the cash, Pepe goes to a jeweler and buys a ring. At the hotel, Amber arrives with Tony and receives a phone call from Pepe. She asks why he took so long to call. He tells her that he has been calling, but no one informed her. He confesses his love and insists they must find a way to be together. She tells him to leave instructions at reception, and she will follow them. Pepe writes a letter, telling her that a boat will be waiting for their escape in the morning. He hands it to the night receptionist, instructing her to give it to Amber only. The next morning, Amber checks for messages, but before she can receive Pepe's letter, Tony joins her. Instead, the receptionist hands them a different letter about their scheduled helicopter departure. Later, as they board the helicopter, Tony casually hands Amber an envelope with a $100 bill, instructing her to tip the bellboy. Inside is actually Pepe's letter with the location of their escape. The bellboy unknowingly takes the letter to Pepe. When Pepe rips it open, he finds the engagement ring inside. Realizing what has happened, he rushes toward the helicopter, but he is too late. Amber cries as the helicopter takes off just before he arrives. Devastated, Pepe throws the ring into the ocean. So that's it. Hope you enjoy the story. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more videos.